Greetings and welcome to another episode of Let's Do a Level of Outpost 2 Divided Destiny. Right, Chapter 3, Accomplice. Axon didn't trust Brooke Panatti, but he found him to be useful, and for now that was enough. Axon's traditional methods had depended on stealth, making small changes at key points to achieve large long-term effects, and most of all, patience. Eden's current status disrupted all of that. Whatever Nagoyan had set loose, it continued to advance unpredictably. The colony had been forced to relocate again, and it appeared it would not be the last time. The Council had made the decision not to tax the colony's resources with a long and dangerous migration. Instead, they would move a shorter distance, dig in, build their resources, and hope for a solution. At least, from here on out, any relocations would be planned and, to a degree, orderly. But that didn't help Axon much. Anything long-term was uncertain and subject to interruption. His method of manipulation and plotting didn't work. It was like trying to build a house of cards during a quake. Young Panatti's methods, on the other hand, were brash, quick, and developed on the fly, and Axon had to admit, better suited to the world as it stood. As a result, Axon not only used Panatti, he watched him, learned from him. Today, Axon sat in the corner of a crowded common area of the first new residence module constructed since Eden's last relocation, and observed the young man wheeling and dealing on the far side of the room. Panatti's blue eyes sparkled, his smile flashed like a dueling saber as he cajoled a short-haired blonde woman Axon recognized as one of the housing supervisors. They sat on a bench surrounded by adults and children, chattering, crying, working, reading, playing, mostly pointedly ignoring each other in the pretense that had come to serve them as a substitute for privacy. The woman was frowning, but although Axon was too far away to hear the conversation, he had the feeling that she was caving in. He had to admit that Panatti was as skillful with charm and salesmanship as Axon was with authority and logical persuasion. Axon's web of contacts, informants and influences had been shattered by the disaster at Eden. Most of these had been among the older colonists, the first sons and daughters of Axon and his fellow elders, born in those frantic first few years after their landing. They had been conceived in the honeymoon between the euphoria of surviving the voyage and the horror that the elders' lives were being cut short by hibernation syndrome. Axon has watched as that first generation, all his closest contemporaries, died around him. Only a handful, including Axon and Emma, were young enough and had been awakened early enough to escape the brunt of that terrible sickness. Now, he had watched most of other generation cut down before his time. It weighed heavily on him. He had lost too many friends in that first tragedy, and he had since considered friends a luxury he couldn't afford. Panatti represented another age group, some of them children of elders, some of the following generation. But socially divided as though by a wall, this was the comfortable generation, which had been grown up in Eden that had become fat, happy, and fearless. For them, survival had never seemed an uncertainty. Want had never been their companion, until the disaster. Until now. Axon had to admit that Panatti was well connected. In the aftermath of the disaster, evacuation and relocation, he and his contemporaries had been pushed into positions of control and authority, while some would have become slaves to duty or inversely resentful of the burden. Panatti both shouldered the load and immediately saw the opportunities it created. He'd maintained every contact available to him, and he had used these to make more. Single-handedly he'd created a black market in luxury goods and services, and made it so efficient and useful that the authorities were forced to look the other way. In his own way, Panatti provided a service that the struggling colony couldn't do without. Until his violent first meeting with Axon, those contacts had been used only in the cause of petty racketeering, but Axon had immediately seen more substantial possibilities. Even though Panatti had failed to deliver on his dubious promise to deliver craft back into his possession, in any case, the disruption of this latest evacuation had given him a reprieve on that offer. Across the room, the conversation seemed to be ending. The blonde woman glanced at Axon without making eye contact, or acknowledging his presence, and stood, and made her way out through the safety lock. Bonatti in turn stood and strolled casually toward Axon. He sat down on the other end of the bench and pretended to be studying a form displayed on his clipcom. Axon glanced at him without moving his head. "Well?" Bonatti smiled slightly. "It's a done deal. I shift some schedules so she gets her next residence module 2 weeks early, and you've got room 13 over there." He motioned with his head towards the left wall. "You can move in at any time. I'll send a cargo cart down to pick up your stuff." Axon shook his head slightly. "Not just yet. Did you set up the meeting with your scientist friend?" "They're very busy getting the new lab up to speed. He's working double shifts." "Did you set up the meeting?" The corners of Bonatti's mouth twitched down. "Yeah, but it cost me a damn near as much trade value as getting you your private quarters." "It doesn't matter. Kraft might be able to tell us something about what went wrong back at the hot lab. Failing that, we have to know what the authorities know." "They've already told us. An advanced nuclear power source ran out of control and flooded the area with hard radiation." Axon smirked in spite of himself. "You believe that? What else would it be?" "I don't know. But I know what radiation poisoning looks like, and something else killed those people. Something chemical or biological." "You weren't there when the accident happened. How could you—" He looked over, abandoning the pretense of ignoring Axon. "You're keeping things from me again, aren't you?" "I'll tell you what you need to know. You talk to your friends, then perhaps we'll both know what happened. When and where." "The maintenance tunnel under the CC in half an hour." "Why can't we just meet in your quarters? I thought the whole point of arranging for them was to get privacy." Axon sighed. "Privacy that I don't want to compromise with visitors. I don't want to draw attention by having a constant stream of strangers going in and out of my room. I've told you again and again that I don't want my associations to be that obvious." Bonatti scratched his nose. Okay, I was just asking." "I saw you with Della again last night. That's the 3rd time this month." Bonatti frowned and flexed his hands nervously. "We're drinking buddies these days, that's all. She might be useful if you ever going to get your computer back." "I know that, but it doesn't pay to get too close." "I'll be the judge of that. Listen, we have a working relationship here. You just stay the frag out of my personal life. Understood?" Axon said nothing. He had denied himself companionship for too long to have much sympathy for the younger man. He knew too well the problems such entanglements caused. His relationship with Emma had worked only because they had been in conspiracy as equals. It had failed for the same reason. Bonatti leaned forward half out of his seat. "I'll meet you down there in 20. Later." He stood and strolled out of the room as casually as he had entered it, expertly hiding any anger he might be feeling. Axon slumped back in his seat and sighed again. He liked working alone, and resented having to depend on this child. Bonatti's motives were less than clear to Axon, and that made him uncomfortable. Axon could use him. He couldn't trust him, and he didn't know if he could depend on him. It was the kind of uncertainty that kept Axon awake at nights. But for Axon, there was no choice whatsoever. The tunnel was narrow, nearly identical to the one where he'd first met Bonatti. It gave him a sense of déjà vu. He'd even been here before, right after the relocation, to investigate the possibility of contacting Kraft. He could still see the scratches where he'd removed the service panel. Sloppy work, he thought. Bonatti had been right, of course, and might have saved Axon from a terrible mistake. His plan, while it might have worked, had been far too risky, born more of desperation than reason. Patience had always been his forte, and in this one instance it might be still his best plan. He glanced at the chrono display on his wrist link. Patience had its limits. Where were they? A pair of figures slid around the nearest bend of the corner. One of them was Bonatti, the other, a shorter man with a round face and skin the color of dark chocolate, had to be the scientist. Axon stared at Bonatti. "You're late." "It's my fault, Eldon," said the scientist. He stuck out his hand. "Eldon's the name. Eldon Jensen. He presented me a science award back in 3rd grade. It's a real honor. Axon had a vague recollection of the school visit before he'd become the last elder in Eden, and the burden of secrecy had fallen solely on him. Axon suppressed an annoyed smile. Evidently, it wasn't enough of an honor for Jensen to make the meeting without a substantial bribe. So, continued Jensen, what did you want to know? Axon studied the man. He seemed guileless, but one could never be sure. Certainly he had already proven himself greedy enough to be bought. I trust you understand that this absolute discretion is necessary here, Jensen. I don't want this conversation getting back to the council, or anyone else for that matter. Jensen smiled. Of course. Axon nodded. Good. As you are certainly aware, Mr. Bonatti and I are not without resources. If word of this were to leak, we'd be most upset. The pause was calculated. Sometimes a pause spoke terabytes. Jensen looked from Axon to Bonatti nervously. Axon noticed that Bonatti kept a perfect poker face. You can count on me, completely. Axon smiled reassuringly. Then we can move on. I want to know what went wrong at the hot lab. What killed all those people at Eden? And what is forcing us to keep moving? Jensen looked nervous. We don't know. Radiation. To Axon's surprise, Bonatti shook his head. Don't try to scam us, Jensen. We know those people weren't killed by radiation poisoning. The radiation wouldn't continue to spread. That's just a cover story for something maybe chemical, more likely biological. Jensen chewed his lip. Biological. We know that much. Nagoyan had them working on a terraforming bug. It was supposed to live in the deep rocks to crack loose hydrogen and oxygen bound in the planet's crust. They were into some serious biotech. Beyond simple genetics, they were re-engineering the internal workings of bacterial cells from the molecules up. They thought they had it too. They were confident enough to begin field tests. Axon nodded. Test wells under the lab. Those were the start, but they were doing field tests too. A line of wells running up Jaeger Canyon, almost to Plymouth, following the natural fault line. A chill ran down Axon's back. What had happened could potentially have affected Plymouth as well. Then what went wrong? How did a terraforming bug destroy a lab and send us scurrying across the landscape like nomads? Jensen looked puzzled. I assumed you knew, Elder. You were the only one who pushed for the first evacuation of the colony. You mean, you didn't even know why? Axon frowned. This was exactly the sort of question he didn't want to raise. Bonatti jumped in. We brought you here to answer questions, Jensen, not to ask them. We've paid for the answers, not you. If the Elder asks questions that he already knows the answers to, it's because he needs to know what you, and in turn the Council, thinks the answers are. Axon raised an eyebrow. Good going, boy. Jensen took a moment to digest the response. It seemed to go down well. Without knowing the details of what Nagoyan's people were doing, and we don't, we can't say for sure. What we do know is that it has something to do with a terraforming bug, and it's reproducing and spreading through the deep rock at a phenomenal rate. Along the way, it's causing geothermal activity in some way we don't understand yet. The tremors we've been feeling lately, said Axon. That's just one symptom of a much broader effect. Possibly that's what happened in the hot lab. Steam blowout through the well, or even magma. We just don't know. Jensen hesitated, as though he thought he might be saying too much. We tried to send survey vehicles back to the contaminated area. They all malfunctioned and stopped transmitting shortly after entering. The information we have suggests some breakdown of the organic materials in the vehicle. Plastics, bioelements in the optronics, things like that. We think there may be a way to protect the vehicle, at least for a while, and we're working on a way to detect the approach of the bug, the blight. That's what we've been calling it. That's about all we know for the moment. What we really need is to get back into Eden. Jensen stared at Axon, blinking silently. It seemed there was nothing more forthcoming. I want to be kept posted on your progress. If there are any significant developments, contact Mr. Bonatti at once. If necessary, we'll arrange another meeting. He considered his own words for a moment, then continued. Furthermore, I want you to arrange for me to be called in on a consulting basis. Jensen blinked and bobbed his head nervously. What? Elder, I can't. Axon wasn't listening to him. Mr. Bonaggi will make it worth your while, and there are plenty of legitimate reasons. I've got a more hands-on Poptonics experience than anyone, and I helped build the original colony, original Eden. I know everything about it, including plenty that you won't find on the blueprints. Jensen's eyes narrowed. I suppose I could at least suggest the idea? Don't suggest, Jensen. Push. Understand? Jensen nodded, and when it was apparent they were through with him, he straightened and tried to put on his business face. It has been a pleasure, Elder. He stuck out his hand again. Axon ignored it this time. I'm not your friend, Jensen. I'm just somebody who is paying you for certain considerations. Remember that. Jensen quickly pulled back his hand, slid past Panetti, and departed without another word. Axon and Panetti watched him go, waiting until he'd been out of sight for several minutes. So, said Panetti, breaking the silence. What did you see during the disaster that told you this radiation thing was a cover story? Axon turned and started walking away. I heard a woman warning me of the danger with her last breath. He kept walking. I watched her melt into goo right in front of my eyes. Axon stood in the darkened control room of the command center studying the images flickering on the large screen. The link to the observer satellite had only recently been restored, and until now access to it had been restricted, so Axon hadn't seen a single image. Now his dealings with Jensen had finally borne fruit. It didn't bother Axon that he had to call at the call. Didn't bother Axon that the call had come at such a late hour. He knew he was a controversial figure, and they undoubtedly wanted to keep the meeting as low profile as possible. He noticed that most of the CC staff had been sent on break, though Panetti's friend Della was working on the far side of the room. Even she was careful to keep her eyes to herself, spending her slack moments looking out the large window behind the console rather than at them. Jensen was there, along with a few other scientists that Axon knew only in passing. He noticed that Jensen was standing at the far side of the group and being careful not to make eye contact. He's not a good liar. Something I should have taken into consideration before I started this. Still, he seems to have pulled it off. On the screen, the same 1-minute satellite clip played for the 5th time since he'd arrived. Dr. Kolo addressed Axon. He was the senior of the scientists, a hard-featured man with a shaved beard, shaved head, and bushy black eyebrows. Elder, we're consulting you on this matter because of your broad knowledge of Poptronic systems. This video was taken off from the observer satellite about a week ago. What do you make of it? As he watched, a vehicle, one of Nagoyan's combat units, lurched in its way across the screen, pausing to fire at the cargo truck that similarly lurched within range. Parts of the truck cab glowed and melted on the combat unit's energy weapon, and the truck lurched once more before halting, perhaps forever. He looked Kolo squarely in the eye. I'd be glad to help if I can, but to be of much use, I need background. Tell me really what happened during the disaster. The scientists looked uncomfortably at one another. Then Kolo sighed and turned back to Axon. The situation was a great deal more serious than we've led people to believe, and the danger is not past. Not even our continued migrations have ended it. We know that some kind of biological agent was released into the lab in the lab explosion. Possibly was even the cause of it. That agent continues to spread deep underground in a manner we don't fully understand, seeping into the surface through vents where it can infect buildings and vehicles. That agent was an accelerated microbe, engineered from bacteria that had lived in hot springs, deep ocean vents and buried in the crust of old Earth. Microbes that had already could survive the most hostile conditions imaginable. That microbe was designed to live in New Terra's crust, breaking oxygen bonds, releasing water and gases to form a new atmosphere. But, interjected Axon, the human body is full of oxygen bonds. So are many of our plastics and synthetic materials. So are biological elements of our Poptronic systems. The scientists again looked uncomfortable. He was telling them things they hadn't intended for him to know, just as well as his conclusions depended on that knowledge. Axon continued, What we're looking at here isn't a Poptronic system anymore. It's an Optronic system. From what you've told me, the protein computer cores of these units are gone. It's just so they've just been given a skillful and selective lobotomy. Jensen looked at him. You think they're dangerous? Based on what you've shown me, I know they are. The combat units are anyway. And there may not be anything else left operational by the time you get there. These units have lost their higher command functions, their ability to understand and respond to commands, and to recognize other units, friend or foe. What's left are hardwired autonomous functions. Move, steer, avoid, attack, patrol. My guess is they'll fire at anything that moves within range of them. Or, if erosion of plastic insulation is also causing shorts in their electrics, which they could be totally unpredictable, capable of doing almost anything. The scientists looked at one another and moved off to the corner of the room and began talking in whispers. Axon hoped that they didn't give up on the idea of an expedition to the disaster site. It might well be their only way of learning enough to control the blight. Axon watched the attack on the truck again and wished that there was a way to connect craft to the satellite station so he could attempt to contact Emma. Plymouth had to be warned if they had any hope of survival. They were in it at least as much danger as Eden, perhaps more so given their own ignorance. If they still even fully exist, he thought. He longed to redirect the satellite to check on Plymouth, but that was impossible. And if the scientists had already done so, the images were, like so many other information these days, being suppressed. The scientist moved back over. Elder, said Dr. Cologne, we'd be grateful if you took the video and materials we've provided you and prepared a report for us, outlining the danger you think the rogue vehicles represent and suggesting countermeasures. We'd also like your input on procedures to transfer data from non-biological memory systems of the Eden Lab computers. Cologne hesitated before continuing, long enough that Axon almost thought the conversation was over. There is another related matter. The digital backups of our gene banks were in that lab. It's possible they have survived, and if so, we'd like to find a way to salvage the data. Axon's eyes widened. You don't mean we've lost our gene banks? Cole smiled slightly. No, nothing like that. The 3 biological gene banks, human, agricultural and biosphere, are still intact. In fact, they're stored here in the CC for safekeeping. But the digital encoding of those genes has always been our backup in case something ever happened to them, and we don't have either the time, the resources, or possibly even the technology to reproduce the data. Axon was aware of a spot to apply leverage. Plymouth has their own copy of the biological gene banks. Kolo's face was as blank as he responded. I don't see how that would do us any good. We aren't even sure if Plymouth still exists. Oh, he's sure. He knows something about Plymouth that he isn't telling. If only I could get to that satellite downlink. But even if the fact of Plymouth's survival or destruction was still denied him. As he left the CC, he passed the parked scooters without stopping, deciding that he would walk would help him think. He'd gone only 100 meters or so when he ran into Panetti. What are you doing here? Panetti frowned and looked away. Della's getting off shift, and she and I were going to play a game of billiards. Axon just shook his head. It's none of your fragging business, Axon. Just then, they heard a muffled boom. The air around him seemed to surge toward the CC, and Axon felt his ears pop. He was already looking for the nearest emergency suit locker, when it was apparent that the pressure drop was small and only momentary. Their fight forgotten, Panetti stared at Axon. What the frag was that? Pressure blowout, said Axon. He pointed towards the CC. That way. Panetti ran up the tunnel, and Axon trotted after him, following him up the ramp towards the CC. As they watched, a cart with a volunteer emergency crew rolled past, stopping just in front of the sealed emergency lock. One member of the disaster instant response team checked the indicators on the lock and flipped the override switch that opened both doors. People began to stagger out, including Jensen, the scientist Axon had just been talking to, stunned looks on their faces. Panetti grabbed Jensen and pulled him aside. What happened up there? He stared blankly at Panetti for a moment. Brooke, sorry. I just made it out in time. My ears are ringing. I don't feel so good. Panetti put his hands on the man's shoulders. We'll find you a medic. What happened? Jensen put his hand over his mouth, fingers pointing upwards, touching his upper lip. Is my nose bleeding? Benetti gave him a little shake. What happened? Viewport blew out. Meteor hit, I guess. There was a crack and it just blew. A woman was standing right next to it when it was sucked out. Woman? What woman? Action's jaw clenched. He already knew the answer. Jensen stared off into the space blankly. Della. Her name was Della. Right. Mission briefing. Commander, our colony has relocated again, as far away from the Blight as our limited resources would allow. Now we must expand our research and grow our colony to survive. The basic lab is no longer useful. The new standard lab configuration will allow us to develop new technologies with tangible results. Cybernetic teleoperation research will allow us to build more vehicles and remotely operate them. An active nursery will allow us to expand our population and decrease infant mortality rates, and an active university will allow us to train more workers and scientists. The new colony location is seismically active. This seems to be a side effect of the Blight as it spreads over new terra. Be prepared for tremors. The colonists will soon realize the gravity of the situation, and morale may begin to fluctuate. This may affect our production rates at factories, agrodomes and laboratories. High morale will improve the birth rate and lower the mortality rate. Do what you can to keep the colonists alive, but do not forget about our other objectives. The Blight is still a threat. We must keep sufficient evacuation transport ready and prepare other resources to move if we cannot stop it. To have any hope of stopping the Blight, we must learn more about it. Our scientists need some data from some of our advanced labs in our original colony. They believe they can make modifications to some vehicles providing temporary resistance to the effect of the Blight. One other modification to these vehicles must be made. Before the accident, our council had become very concerned about the threats from Plymouth leaders. To protect ourselves in the face of those hostile words, our council ordered some of our scientists to develop defensive weapon systems. Several prototypes had been developed using modified industrial lasers. The prototypes have been installed in some structures and vehicles for testing purposes. Our scientists believe the Blight may have infected and altered the organic memories of these systems. They may perceive our expedition's return as some kind of threat. The vehicles we send back will need to be equipped properly to defend themselves. Research will allow us to conduct our own weapon prototypes. The savant computers have done projections on what we need to accomplish all these goals. See the specific objectives, lists, yada yada. Act quickly, Commander. We must be ready. Right. Now this list is a bit of a lie, because once we research cybernetic teleoperation, we will get more. But that's fine. For now, we'll just start the mission.
Command control initiated.
Right. We have that over there. Let's get going. Because we need supplies immediately. Now there's no other source of metal on the map. And we now also have a day-night cycle.
Production in surplus.
Right, let's get all our convex over to where they need to be, and let's start the search.
Caution. Power levels marginal.
Now, it is said that the research in this game is sort of plausible science. I'm gonna question that a little bit, because while certain technologies developed here will certainly possible, we are delving into the realm of some science fiction levels when we start building visible laser light weapons and turrets that can shoot lightning. Although, of course, that's not quite for some time yet. Right. We have a nursery. Let's build a residence. Now I need to be a little bit careful with what I build, because...
Warning. Seismic event detected.
That's luckily not that far. Because we currently have only 5 workers available.
Research completed. Morale is poor.
Now I can check what morale is. They want more residences. Food production is alright, but it's not great. And currently we don't have any scientists working as workers. That's good. But we do need to stay on top of things, so I'll just start those researches. And get a medical center going as well.
New worker ready.
I may also want another agrodome. And then we can start working on getting the morale up. And these
Structure kit
can
manufactured.
be over there.
Structure completed.
Alright,
Food production in surplus.
that is now under control.
Caution. Power levels marginal.
Alright, that's not great.
Warning. Seismic event detected.
That is certainly not great. And the mine is still intact, but one of our trucks got badly damaged.
Structure disabled.
And that's not good.
Research completed.
Right, let's get some seismology going so I can get a little bit of advanced warning on these earthquakes.
New worker
And let's
ready.
get that repaired. Also, I need power. Alright, I need at least 28 children and 15 scientists. So that means I need to train scientists. That's just simply a process that takes time. Not really a concern. Alright, I should look into stuff that I might need.
Structure completed. Structures
Alright, let's
disabled.
give...
Warning. Power shortage. Morale is poor.
Right, I need another medical center, I think. Let's build the dirt. The disaster instant response team will help make the morale go up, because having dirt protection makes it more useful.
New worker ready. Morale
Right, I
is
need to
set.
just have the kits
Structure
in
repaired.
storage, so we can do that later. Right, that is finished repairing. Let's go back. And as soon as this tokamak is finished, we'll be all set.
Warning. Seismic event detected. Food production
I'd
in
rather not lose
surplus.
any more trucks if at all possible.
Structure kit manufactured. Structure disabled.
Come on, finish the science.
Research completed.
Alright,
Structure completed. Power
let's
levels
make our
optimal.
agrodomes a little bit more efficient.
New worker ready. Morale is poor.
Let's see. I do need to have food on cargo trucks.
Structure kit manufactured.
Let's see.
Morale is fair. Structure kit manufactured.
Oh, research is so slow. I kind of want to train scientists, but I can't really do that. At least we should have some advanced warning now.
Alert. Seismic event imminent. Structure completed. Structure disabled. New worker ready.
But I need to keep the people happy. Happy, happy, happy.
Warning. Seismic event detected. Morale
And
is
here's
good.
another nice touch. There is, in fact, a communication satellite. It's not operational. We know that, of course, because of the story, but
Food production in
you know,
surplus.
it might not be immediately apparent. Alright, let's get
Research
pipe laid
completed.
down there. Right. Let's get
Structure completed.
cybernetic
Alert.
teleoperation.
Seismic event imminent. Power levels optimal.
Now, currently the dirt will not provide enough protection, but
Warning. Seismic event detected.
oh crap.
New worker.
Well, at least the dirt helps.
Tube completed.
That's essentially the purpose of the dirt, to reduce the amount of damage. But I do need to keep an eye on my tokamaks, because they will keep getting damaged simply by being alive, being active.
Structure
Right, let's
repaired.
repair.
Research completed. New mission objective.
See? Told you the game was lying. Now I need to have some vehicles.
Structure completed.
So let's
Alert.
create
Seismic event
a
imminent.
vehicle factory. Right, that's fine. As long as the things are far in the distance, I'm alright with that.
New worker
Right.
ready. Morale is excellent.
Let's keep it that way.
Warning. Seismic event detected. Structure repaired. Alert. Seismic event imminent. Morale is good.
Right.
Warning. Seismic event detected.
Let's get the
Food
laser
production in
weapons going.
surplus.
The large-scale optical resonators.
Structure kit manufactured. Power levels optimal.
How much power do I have? Alright, 180. That's probably enough.
New worker ready. Structure disabled.
Now, as much as I want to go into comforts and all that, I really can't afford to waste the time because the blight is still on the way. And they don't give me much time to solve any of the real problems. So I'll just start loading up the cargo trucks. Luckily, food will keep in the back of the trucks.
Alert. Seismic event imminent.
Not great. Shouldn't be too much of a danger.
Structure kit manufactured.
Let's see, what...
New worker
A
ready.
tokamak kit.
Warning. Seismic event detected. Alert. Seismic event imminent.
No, still fine. Just focused on the task at hand.
Morale is good.
Right.
Warning. Seismic event detected.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Alert. Seismic event imminent. Food production in surplus.
Keep my buildings alive. I mean, I've got enough metals at the
Warning.
moment.
Seismic event detected. Research completed.
Alright. What does that do?
Power levels optimal.
No, that's not the...
Structure repaired.
Let's go... Ooh. Let's go with this one.
New worker ready. Structure
Alright,
completed.
let's get some vehicles going.
Structure
I
kit
need 2
manufactured.
scouts. And as far as RTS games go, this one is a little bit convoluted. I mean, considering how many clicks I have to go through to build a simple
Vehicle
vehicle.
ready.
Never mind the entire list of things I have to build. I mean, scouts build quite quickly, but that's really not much of a
Vehicle
good
ready.
thing. Alright, scouts can go up here. I know that there will never be any earthquakes up here. That's just programmed into the game.
Seismic event imminent. Vehicle ready. New worker ready.
Alright, let's get some... What else do I need? I need lynxes.
Warning. Seismic event detected.
I should have a lynx in this.
Alert. Seismic event imminent.
Right, how many scientists do I have?
Morale
I have
is
12.
good. Warning. Seismic event detected. Structure kit manufactured. The blight is
Oh,
approaching.
crap.
New worker ready. Food production in surplus.
Now, luckily, the blight arrives at night, so it will not do much. But I only have until the dawn,
Power levels
so I
optimal.
really need to hurry. Let's just start the class. Just need to buy time. That's really all I need. Let's see.
Alert. Seismic event imminent.
Let's get everyone moved away. Now, trading scientists takes
Alert.
quite a long
Seismic
time
event
in game
imminent.
terms,
New
especially at this
worker
early
ready.
level.
Morale is excellent. Warning. Seismic event detected. Morale is good. Vehicle ready. Warning. Seismic event detected.
Right,
Research completed.
mobile weapons platform. Go. Stay back, Blight. Train faster, you bastards.
Alert. Seismic event imminent.
Let's hope I don't lose any more scientists.
New worker ready. Warning. Seismic event detected.
That's too far away from my buildings.
Structure repaired.
Still have time.
Food production in surplus.
Alright, let's start getting these trucks going. I think I've got enough metals. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need at least one more cargo truck.
New worker ready. Morale is excellent. Vehicle ready. Alert. Seismic event imminent.
Come on, finish the glass. Finish the glass.
Warning. Seismic event detected. New worker ready. Morale is good.
We're running out of nighttime.
Structure
Oh,
disabled.
no, no, no!
Research completed.
Let's go for metal reclamation. Alright. But we should now be able to build the lynxes.
Alert. Seismic event imminent. New worker ready. Vehicle ready. Food
Alright,
production in
4 or more
surplus.
lynxes.
Morale is excellent. Warning. Seismic event detected. Morale is good. Power levels optimal. Vehicle ready. Research completed.
And high temperature conductivity. Go. Any research I do now is basically just extra cherry on the cake.
Seismic event imminent.
And there comes the dawn.
Vehicle ready. New worker ready. Structure repaired. Warning. Seismic event detected.
Alright, let's get these trucks out of here.
Vehicle ready.
And these trucks are no longer needed here, so they can go. Just need to wait until this finishes, and hopefully the blight will not catch us.
Alert. Seismic event imminent. New worker ready.
Come on. It doesn't matter if this technology not finishes or not, I'll just have to get a chance to finish the next mission, but the blight is coming. Finish training, finish faster. I mean, it would be nice if this finishes, but it's not crucial.
New worker ready.
Yes!
You have done well. Our colony is surviving.
Alright. Another successful mission. I will see you all next time.